Wokingham Today is hosting a series of leader interviews ahead of the local elections on Thursday, May the 5th. The leaders will begin with an opening statement and then answer questions on 5 topics. At the end, they will be invited to make a direct address to you, the voter. Wokingham Today has also prepared ward pages on its website, giving you the chance to meet the candidates standing in each ward. Today, I'm joined by the leader of the Wokingham Conservatives and current council leader, John
This
Halsall.
is a local election. Your vote will not affect Parliament or the world at large. We are the best managed council in the land on many counts, the healthiest, the most prosperous, and one of the most desirable places to live, with the lowest level of deprivation. We have not cut services, rather we are opening leisure and community centres and libraries. Our financial management and prudence are rated by CIPFA as one of the best, despite having the lowest level of government funding. This is what is at risk. It is the result of 20 years of good Conservative administration. We're not complacent. We have a full programme in our 3-year financial plan, our corporate plan and our manifesto to make the borough a better, safer, happier and more secure place to live. We never forget that the only reason we are here is to serve you, our residents. We face difficult times ahead. It is no time for novices. The borough needs a steady and experienced hand on the tiller. The adverse winds, the gale force, are increasing. There are many councils facing financial difficulties. A council which is bust is no good to anyone.
Okay, thank you, John. So the first topic that I would like to cover is development. Now, I think all parties have agreed that development is quite a big topic for residents, especially this year with various applications going in over the last 12 months. So how can a Conservative council control housing numbers and appease residents, yet still achieve government targets of 768 homes per year?
Okay, well, first of all, we led the way in convincing the government that their housing formula was wrong and needed change. As such, we've managed to cut the housing targets from 1,635 new homes to the current 768. The proposed housing target for the borough is too high, and we're determined to reduce it. At the same time, we need to ensure that more affordable homes are delivered in the right places with the right infrastructure, so that young and talented people are not driven out of the area. We do have to have a local plan. If we don't have a local plan, any developer can successfully apply for planning permission on any site, and we have unrestricted development, which would be in excess of 2,000 new homes a year. So it's irresponsible to suggest that we shouldn't have a local plan. The local plan will not please anybody, everybody. It has been out for consultation, which is a consultation 2 months ago. The consultation responses are being assessed, and then we need to reissue the consultation with the findings that we've had. So it is impossible to please everybody. Nobody likes development next to them, but on the other hand, we absolutely must have a development plan, because that would the lack of it would result in unrestricted development. It's also ridiculous to assume that a Liberal Democrat run council would have a good dialogue with central government. We have a very good dialogue with central government and have not only impacted on the housing numbers materially, famously as a result of me threatening to walk down Whitehall naked, and but also I led the charge against the plan for a change in planning policy from the National Planning Policy Framework, which would have resulted in less resident opportunity to defend their borough.
Okay, so and, you touched on it there with regards to affordable housing. I believe the average house price in Woking at the moment is around £415,000. So what can the council do within its remit to sort of appease that and control that? I mean, I know developers would like to build expensive homes because there's more than likely more profit for them. But like you say, there has to be an element of affordable housing. So what can you do to sort of force developers' hands to do that?
Well, there's a mixture of what we can do. First of all, is to try and get the government to agree that local authorities should have greater control over the developers. And I will be chairing the Southeast Strategic Leaders to make the case for the Southeast next year, or actually this year. The second thing is that we need to build or get in our local plan a greater degree of smaller homes, starter homes, and generally smaller homes. But lastly, and most importantly, we have embarked on a council programme to build social homes. We're building social homes at the rate of about 300 a year. It is what used to be called council houses, which is an important element of maintaining the skills in our borough.
Okay, and I know in your Wokingham manifesto, a very keen tagline that both you and your councillors are keen to push is the right homes in the right places. What would you define as the right places for Wokingham? Because I know there's lots of green areas that councillors are very keen to protect, but there is only so much space where homes can be built. So where is sort of the right place to build homes in Wokingham Borough?
Well, the red herring is always brownfield sites. We have extensively trawled our brownfield sites, and they are either not possible to develop, because at the end of the day, we can only permit development where the owner wants the development to be permitted. So the brownfield sites is really an exhausted topic. Almost anything we do is either redevelopment of existing housing or on a greenfield site. Every blade of grass which we lose, to me, is a tragedy. And therefore the right answer is to keep persisting on getting the housing numbers down. But in answer to your question, what is the right homes in the right places? It is trying to address in the local plan that question, which is a very complicated question, because the answer will be different in every location in the borough. Generally, we favour either building close to a settlement or in a strategic development location. And as you know, the latest consultation was a strategic development location in Hall Farm, south Reading University.
Okay, and slightly changing topics, but it does link in. When you have new development, of course, there's local infrastructure that has to be improved as well. And you can expect that when you have development, there's likely to be more young people, more students, more pupils for the schools. The council has already admitted that there is a shortfall of places, particularly for secondary school students, and that's despite an increase at Piggott, Embrook, St Crispin's and Bowhunt for this year. What can be done to increase
I think Daniel, that's the wrong question, and we'll come into it on schools, because we've had a very strange demand which has happened this year, which we've had to cater for. So if we could post that for the topic on schools. But the infrastructure question is that the borough has, in its planning policies, attempted to finance the infrastructure front end, so that when the homes are built, the infrastructure has already been there for some time. And that is what we've done with the 4 new roads. We've also done that with the basic fabric infrastructure. The schools have been delivered before the buildings have been delivered. In fact, to the embarrassment that we have a school now which is empty, awaiting development, which is not really good. So we've tried to lead infrastructure lead on development. Unfortunately, that strategy may come a cropper because of the proposed modifications of the MRP, which is the minimum revenue position, is the amount we have to book into the general fund for borrowings and capital that we make, and that might encompass the pre-funding of infrastructure. We largely funded the infrastructure for schools, community centres, the basic facilities like roads and such like, and quite successfully. The bugbear, which is universal, is that we have no control of medical facilities, and therefore we have to keep on badgering the ICS and the CCG to put in medical facilities, and have generally been unsuccessful so far. We're hoping that the new ICS situation will allow us more leverage to make our GPs more responsive to need. But I think that's a national problem, but we've also got into lead without a local problem resulting from development. We have some of the best GP surgeries in the country, and we also have some of the worst, and they sit alongside one another, and there's no apparent reason why that should be, other than the difference in management.
Right, okay, not a problem at all. So if we do move on to the subject of schools, away from development now, like I say, it is kind of a follow-on question, because there is always going to be collateral. When there's more people moving into an area, you would expect more young people, more students, more pupils. What can be done to alleviate the shortfall in secondary school places? I know you mentioned that this year was a specific year.
Before you move off the local plan, I think that suggestions that we should not have a local plan or not meet the housing numbers are very irresponsible, because in not having a local plan, we'll not be able to defend the borough at all. And South Oxfordshire, Liberal Democrat South Oxfordshire, found to its cost that not having a local plan meant that actually the development increased, and eventually the local plan that they did not want to have was imposed by central government. So moving on to the schools, we've had a very unusual, and we will continue to have a very unusual year, in that the applications from schools were considerably up. The reasons for that is that our schools are good and outstanding. 20 years of Conservative administration has given some of the best schools in the country in our borough. And we are very proud of them, and we're very proud of our teachers. As a consequence, people come to live here to use our schools, and the schools' admissions policies have allowed for people out of borough to come to the schools. So we had a record application for secondary schools this year, notwithstanding the fact that we increased the number of places last year. But also interleaved with that was an unexpected welcoming of Hong Kong residents who've come to live in the borough, and a huge number of children from that area. And also now we're facing a number of Ukrainians, which I expect to be around about 250 children coming to the borough, which we welcome, and we need to make provision for those children. So it's, if you like, a perfect storm in terms of numbers, because when you look to the horizon on primaries, we actually have less children than places.
Yeah.
So, and you say, well, why can't you plan it better? Well, we can't plan it at all, really. We're always guessing. We're not entitled to the statistics which come out of government in terms of births and some stuff which might help us. We have to wait till the applications are made, and then that's when we know how many applications we have to cater for.
Yeah.
So it's an unfortunate year, but we have coped. All the children who wish to be catered for in the borough are now being catered for the borough. We've invested in Crispin's, Pigott's, Embrook, and as you know, we're subject to agreement with Bohun. We're planning with them for a sixth form. We're having our first special educational needs school in Winnersh, which will be one of many, I hope. And we've had to, this year, forge a new partnership with the schools because they themselves are currently in some difficulty, in that there's no one who builds schools other than the borough. There's no one who repairs schools other than the borough. The borough has an issue with home to school transport if the catchment areas are too large, and we need the schools to offer a whole range of services, particularly SEN services. So we need to work in partnership, and a schools partnership has been formed in the last 6 months, and we're working together with the schools, and hopefully that will be a partnership which makes the schools better than they are now, which will be remarkable, as they are very good already.
Yes, and I know a lot of the schools in the borough are academies, so it's like you said, it's about working in partnership. Is there anything in particular that the council can do in partnership with the schools to, I don't know, whether it's not necessarily increase the amount of places, but things like first choices? Can the catchment area be reduced? I know that's outside of the council's remit, but is it something that the council can request so that people don't necessarily come from far outside the borough into it, and it kind of assists students within the borough to get those places as a priority?
Well, hopefully that in working together in partnership with the schools, we will be able to forge together policies which are mutually beneficial. Nobody in the world thinks that it's sensible for a child to be half an hour, 3/4 of an hour in a taxi every morning and every evening. It just doesn't make sense, where their friends are scattered in other parts of the borough. You really, ideally, would like children to be in a group where their peer group is their neighbours. So I think the school reforms, and I'm really stepping onto ground which is a bit tendentious for me, because I'm not a schools expert. I think the reforms which were put in place has increased the standards in schools very materially. On the other hand, there are things which have happened which needs to be now ironed out and resolved, and so that we can go for continual improvement in the schools and the quality of life for the children and the residents.
Okay, thank you, John. I think we'll move on to something that's at the forefront of everyone's minds, whether that's residents, councillors, businesses. It impacts everyone, is the cost of living. Now, I think a lot of people accept that the council do have their hands tied with a lot of this issue. You know, they don't set energy prices, they don't set fuel prices, things like the pandemic, the devastating Ukraine war is external factors. But what can the council do to help residents and business with the cost of living crisis that's ongoing at the moment?
We already do a lot. You may or may not know what we did during COVID. We provided unprecedented support to residents throughout the pandemic and are continuing to help those who are struggling with the cost of living. As well as financial support, we're reducing costs and freezing charges where we can and coordinating with voluntary organisations to provide help. We are also investing in communities to attract new and better paying jobs in the area. No one gets left behind under our Conservative administration. The pandemic had one of the biggest impacts on people's cost of living of any event in our lifetimes. And it's important that the council played a leading role in making sure that we are through those difficulties. Although Wokingham Borough is affluent, there's still many who struggle to pay bills and household costs and put food on the table. During the pandemic, we issued grants and discounts to residents and businesses of nearly £80 million, which compares to our total council tax income of 120 million. And we continue to provide grant support. This included making discretionary grants to anybody who needed help. And at the start of the pandemic, the council set up a one front door service, bringing together the voluntary sector to help residents with food and rising energy costs. As people continue to feel the squeeze, we are extending our support for the service. And we are developing an anti-poverty strategy to help those who are least well off and people who are now finding themselves struggling. To help residents reduce their energy, we have launched a Help to Heat scheme, which has already helped more than 1,300 homes with free and low-cost insulation. We are also providing Green Homes Grant to help people on low incomes install energy-efficient improvements such as solar panels or insulation. People may also find it difficult to pay their council tax as a result of the squeeze of the cost of living. While Wokingham Borough is one of the best council tax collection rates, we are also compassionate. We are maintaining the council tax reduction scheme to cut council tax bills for the least well off, something incidentally which both Labour and the Liberal Democrats refused to vote for. So, Daniel, we're doing a huge amount, and it's not limited to what I've said. We are very conscious that there are a number of people will find it difficult, so we will be innovative in trying to address their problems.
Okay, and I know you mentioned the draft anti-poverty strategy. I believe very recently a further £500,000 of funding was put into further research into it. Given how fast the cost of living crisis is increasing, do you feel that in its current state it's robust enough, or do you think more needs to be done for the anti-poverty strategy?
Are you talking about borough or nation?
Borough, more specifically borough, because I've spoken to charities in the area, the likes of First Days, the Cowshed, although it's based in Reading, helps people in Wokingham, and they're finding that their numbers are just continuing to rise and rise and rise. I understand there's only so much the council can do, but with something like the anti-poverty strategy, there's a real opportunity to sort of help alleviate the problem. And do you think it's robust enough in its current state, or does it need further development to be really groundbreaking and really help people in need?
Well, each of these strategies need to be dynamic. And as you say, the situation now is not the situation which was 2 or 3 months ago. And it won't be the situation in 2 or 3 months' time. So we have to be dynamic in our response and tailor our response to what we can do, plus what is needed. And we will do that. We did so successfully through the pandemic. We were constantly changing our position as to the sort of help we could give. And I think generally everybody will agree that we did a very good job. And that's why you need an experienced hand at the tiller. It's not a time to start learning the job.
Okay, thank you. I think we've covered cost of living quite well there. So if you're okay, we'll move on to the fourth topic that I sent over to you, which was the antisocial behaviour. As I'm sure you know, Thames Valley Police have publicly acknowledged that there has been a rise in the number of antisocial behaviour incidents in Wokingham Borough, and more specifically in the town. What can the council do in collaboration with the police to try and reduce those numbers of incidents?
Well, it's a really good question, your antisocial behaviour question, because up to the 1st of April of this year, antisocial behaviour was abrogated to a body called the Public Protection Partnership. And when I got elected as leader 3 years ago, I started the process of creating a response to antisocial behaviour and domestic violence. They were largely subcontracted. We've now brought back the antisocial behaviour and domestic violence. We've appointed a antisocial behaviour manager, a domestic violence manager. We've reinforced the community safety partnership, which is where we work with the police. And we've brought back the enforcement services and the environmental health into the borough as from the 1st of April. Those, the PPP only worked office hours, which really doesn't work for these sort of topics.
Yes.
So our new service works antisocial hours, if that's a good description. So they'll be working, I think, till 2 on Saturday and Sunday morning initially, and to respond to whatever activity is happening. The antisocial behaviour initiative needs to be a real-time initiative. So if I'm playing my piano at 3 o'clock in the morning and annoying my neighbours, a long process doesn't serve anybody. I need somebody to knock on my door and say, do you know that you're causing problems to your neighbours? And we've also started taking all the powers on, which is public spaces protection order. All of this has been opposed by the Liberals and Labour, who have wanted us to retain the PPP and has opposed our taking on the public spaces protection order. They've also opposed the increased number of CCTVs. And it's ironic that Wokingham Town, which is run by a Liberal administration, is the first person to knock on the door and saying that we should be doing more, not less, of a policy which they opposed. Again, it's a dynamic service. It's just been set in place. We will tailor the service to the needs. The antisocial behaviour service has got 10 new officers dedicated to investing and responding to reports of ASB. We're concerned about the ongoing issues with car meets and drag racing, and also people coming out of late night drinking establishments. So we will increase the number of CCTV cameras, and hopefully that will relieve the Thames Valley Police from some of the low-level ASB, allowing them to support our officers for the high-level ASB. When we've completely introduced the Public Spaces Protection Order, which is now I believe, in consultation, this will ban the activity on public land and council property and allow the council to issue fines of up to £1,000 for people breaching the order. So it's not an order without teeth.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's a watch this space. It's taken 3 years to get here. Why has it taken so long? Well, because we had an agreement with West Berkshire and Bracknell. We've had to recruit people. We've had to train people. We've had to get the service up and running and through all the formal procedures. But now it is running. It is within our control, and I'm really hopeful that it's going to start improving the lives of people, because there's four issues that people everywhere have impacts. One is, of course, schools. Second one is roads. Third one is waste, and the fourth one is their immediate environment, which is either antisocial behaviour, bonfires, their neighbours, all sorts, domestic violence. So we are really focused on improving the lives of our residents, and the reduction of antisocial behaviour is key to that.
Okay, just going to touch very briefly. It's just very briefly on like the car meets that you mentioned. I know it's an element of the noise, the disruption. People don't like it, which is totally acceptable. But it's also they may meet up in car parks and just show off their cars. I mean, I saw it in Tesco a couple of weeks ago, and there's 5 young lads with their cars, and they're just sat there. Is there also scope to open a discussion with these kind of communities to say, look, we accept that you want to maybe show off your car or do something like this. You can do that in a peaceful manner, in a good way, in a positive way that's not disruptive to people. And it's about opening those communication channels as well as issuing fines to people who really push the boundaries or go beyond the boundary, sorry.
Daniel, I'm a conservative. My core belief is that you should be able to lead the life that you want in the way that you want to, as long as you're not negatively affecting others. So I'm completely on the same page as the question, that people should be entitled to do whatever they want to do, as long as it doesn't negatively affect others. So people showing their wares and their cars, which they're proud of, and meeting other people who have similar cars, all to be encouraged. And yes, our community's services is all about trying to make that happen. But when they negatively impact other people's lives, then we need to step in, hopefully by persuading people that whatever they're doing is causing a nuisance to others, and asking them to modify their behavior. And if they do, well, why not? People getting very excited about showing their own types of cars to other people, and so it's the basic element of society, in my view. And I'm a conservative. Is that you should, whoever you are, be able to live your life as you want to, and the people like us on a council should try and help you do that. Now, some people who, for reasons beyond their control, they can't, and we need to help them. So the conversation of anti-poverty. But generally, we really want people to be independent, self-sustaining, and happy and secure. And that's what we should be trying to do. So when you're talking about anti-poverty, the basic requirement for people is to have a home. So that's why we're a warm home, which is without damp and comfortable. And that's why we're spending 100 million on Gorse Ride, to ensure that the properties there are of a standard and a quality which people can live a successful life. And it runs through everything that we do. We need to help people to be self-sustaining, but it's also part of what Wokingham Borough is about. We don't have any money. We're the least funded council in the country. So we have to work in partnership with schools, the voluntary sector, the police, the medical sector, to achieve the best outcomes for our residents, which is the approach that we take. So the answer to your question in a very long-winded way is yes, absolutely. If people want to meet and show their cars and they're not causing any nuisance, why not?
Okay, thank you. So the last topic that I sent over to you was council and governance, and I guess that can be divided into two questions really. One, I'll start with the first one. It's, if re-elected for the next 12 months, how will the council, or the Conservative Council, aim to engage with the community on all of the matters that we've just discussed? So whether that's development, I know there's consultation periods, or whether that's schools or things like that. What will the council do to actively engage with residents and the community to get their thoughts on the things that really matter to them?
Well, I think you need to look at my record. In 3 years, we've had the pandemic. And during the pandemic, we spoke to our residents weekly. We now have an email which goes out to 40,000 of our residents. Our residents are in total 180,000, which includes kids, and so total resident 180,000. So we speak to almost a quarter every week. We've increased our consultations on almost everything. We've got a new consultation platform which we're using extensively, and our consultations are not tick boxing exercises, they're real consultations. So if you responded to the local plan consultation, every response will be taken into account, and we will change the sites according to what our residents told us. In my 3 years, I've also increased the amount of cross-party working. Overview and scrutiny has been not only increased, but we're putting more through it, like the budget is going through overview and scrutiny, and overview and scrutiny is now very well managed and is without limitation on what it does. We've got some consultants working with us to make sure our customer services are better and more responsive to our residents, and a platform which is measuring our responses from our residents so that we know that we are taking into account of their views. So the council has become more transparent and more open, and it will continue to be so. If you look at our manifesto, which is that or that, depending on which you're looking at, which I sent you this morning in case you haven't got, we are committed to improving the communications with our residents. Unfortunately, some of the opposition activity is designed to fault that communication. For instance, our current indebtedness is about 236 million, but the opposition keeps on saying that it's 700 million for reasons which I can't explain. So yes, we're increasingly transparent. It's not to say that I haven't made mistakes, because I have, and we believe that we're one of the best run councils in the country, and we're one of the most open.
Okay, thank you. And then the second part of that council and governance topic really is, I think you've publicly admitted that the next year is going to be crucial to manage the budgets really tightly. How can you do that and still spend so that residents feel like they're getting the best value?
I'm a chartered accountant. I've been running businesses all my life, of the size or bigger than the council or even smaller. My executive member for finance, who's my deputy, has also been running businesses of the size throughout his life. We are professional people who understand how numbers work and how they should work. We have a really good team now in the Wokingham Borough on the finance side. The deputy chief executive and member, the director for finance is unequaled. He's very, very competent, very, very experienced. and we meet almost every day, the three of us plus the chief executive, one of whose topics is always spending and income. The level of control is very, very high, and the borough officers have now a feeling that one of the basics of what I was trying to do over the last 3 years is to try to get the officers to feel confident and with their heads up and monitoring their own budgets and performance and such like. And this is an ongoing theme. So if we do the right things at the member level, the executive level, the officers will do the right things on the officer level, and we will manage our way through very, very stormy waters. I'm a very experienced hand, and as I've done in the last 3 years, which have been pretty stormy as well, I and my team will navigate through the next 2 or 3 years. But they are going to be stormy, and we're going to have to do things differently, because we're going to have to find money for things that we hadn't thought of because they weren't necessary beforehand. So look at my record is the answer.
Thank you. So I think the last thing, as you know, was sort of a statement, if you like. When people go to the polling stations on Thursday, May the 5th, why should they vote for their local councillor? You know, why should people put their vote towards a Conservative council?
Well, firstly, this is a local election. Whatever you do is not going to change the Parliament or the world at large. It's going to have a material effect on the services that you get from the council. The Conservatives have a strong record of delivering the best for Woking Borough. We are in one of the most desirable places to live and work in the country, and the most prosperous. Thanks to careful management, we are one of the few councils that still collects waste every week, that invest in leisure services, leisure centres and libraries, and has maintained and enhanced bus services, and invested more than 100 million in new roads to tackle congestion. The Conservatives have a clear programme if we are re-elected on May the 5th. We know that many are struggling with the cost of living. We will continue to issue grants to help individuals and businesses. We have frozen car parking charges, helping businesses and customers alike. We will maintain the council reduction scheme to help the least well off in our community, something which Labour and Liberals refuse to do. We will build the new primary and secondary schools to meet demand for places, including special educational needs schools, the first in Winnersh. To keep our roads congestion free, we will introduce a smart traffic scheme, invest in expanding our road network, create more cycle lanes, keep pressing utility companies not to dig up roads where other roads nearby have already been closed. Woking was rated as the healthiest place to live in 2021. No accident. We will continue investing in greenways and leisure centres to keep people fit and active. We have one of the best climate emergency plans in the country, and we will plant 250,000 new trees and build 4 new solar farms. As the borough is such an attractive place to live, we know that young people don't want to be forced to move away when they decide to leave home. We will build 300 new social homes per year and invest 57 million to build and modernise social and affordable housing. We've successfully worked with the government to reduce our housing number, but it is still too high. We will continue to seek to reduce it to a level that is reasonable for the borough. We will continue to work collaboratively with the government on the planning system to stop houses going in the wrong places or of wrong type and protect green spaces. We face difficult times ahead. The aftermath of lockdowns, COVID, the war in Ukraine, energy prices, inflation, adult and social care, amongst others, is a challenging environment. It is no time for novices. The borough needs a steady and experienced hand on the tiller. The adverse winds are gale force and increasing. There are many council facing financial difficulties. Labour-run Slough has gone bust. The only time Wokingham Borough did was when the Lib Dems ran the council. A council which is bust is no good to anyone and only able to provide statutory services. Your choice at these elections is a local Conservative council with a sound record of delivery and a plan for the future, or Liberal Democratic and Labour parties obsessed with what is going on in Westminster with no ideas of your borough. Please support the best for Wokingham Borough by voting Conservative on the 5th of May. Thank you very much.